dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block.
When I was about 6 years old, I slammed my face first onto a concrete slab and knocked one of my front teeth out. Just imagine the grossest sound ever, and that is the noise my mouth made. I still keep that tooth in a very special place, although I'm not going to tell you where. Okay, actually I will. It's in my underwear drawer in a little tooth case. Real OG cute conservatives know because I've talked about it in a politics episode before. My own personal weirdness aside, we all have our childhood trauma stories and crazy injuries. Am I right? I mean, everything from broken arms to sprained ankles to stitches. Scabbed knees are a childhood rite of passage. But there are some stories that go beyond the wounds, that fade into scars. Those are the sort of stories that sober up the idea of childhood for the ones who are forced to grow up because of extreme injuries. They're also the sort of stories that heal into beautiful accounts of hope, courage, and so much meaning. Today's guest was once a little girl like so many of you listening. She had a bright imagination, curiosity, and friends. She grew up in the sort of place where everyone knows everyone, and playing outside was the norm. And when she was 10 years old, she was doing just that at a friend's house. I'm sure the only thing on her mind that day was to just have fun. Being 10, you have little concept of time, but you're also starting to be more self-aware despite the fact that your childlike wonder is still intact. It's supposed to be a great age, with one foot in childhood and the other starting to inch towards preteen years. Our guest today had a friend that she was playing with this particular day who lived out on a bunch of land, which was a perfect place to explore. So that's what they did, which led them to climbing onto a tractor. And the tractor had been out of use for a long time, so it didn't really pose an obvious threat. That is, until our guest slipped. Out of a natural reaction, she grasped for whatever she could, not even thinking that what she was about to take hold of would rewrite her story forever. Near the tractor was a live power line, and that's exactly what her small hands reached for. Immediately, 10,000 bolts went through her body and shot through her hands, immediately killing her left hand and right arm and knocking her out cold. Now remember, she was 10 years old, and so was her friend, who was right by her side watching the entire ordeal. Help came, but they couldn't pry her hands from the wire easily. She only came into consciousness once before going into a coma for an entire month. In the hours and days following the ordeal, she went through multiple surgeries daily. Ultimately, her right arm and left hand were amputated. Miraculously, though, she was alive thanks to the rain boots she was wearing, which prevented the electricity from shooting out of her feet. Had she not put those shoes on, she wouldn't be here today. She's all grown up now, and she has the most incredible story of hope and resilience. Also, she's one of the prettiest people I have ever met, and I just know that you are going to love her. So please welcome Madysen Acey to The Spillover with me, Alex Clark. What I love about you, Madysen, is that you don't do interviews a lot.
No, I don't.
You've done one other podcast, and it was with your best friend?
Yep.
So I'm so excited that you're here to share your story, and I'm just so thankful that you said yes to coming out here to Phoenix from
Mississippi.
She's from Mississippi, and she's like, you're going to hear my Southern accent. I said, do not worry about that, Madysen, because that's what people love. It's so endearing. The guys are going to think it's cute.
I know, but it can get bad sometimes.
Okay, so I kind of previewed your story, and I did like the summary version, but obviously I want you to give all of the detail from that day when you were 10 years old. So let's start that day, 10 years old. What were you doing in the moments leading up to your accident?
Me and one of my childhood best friends were out playing. Her dad's a farmer. And so right across the street from their house is a bunch of farm equipment and like shops and stuff. And we started our day cleaning an old barn that we weren't supposed to be in. It was just for like all their equipment and extra equipment that was sitting in there. And we were bored, so we wanted to clean the barn. So we were in there sweeping and stuff. And then we decided that it's a very fog memories. But like, I know the gist of it. We started out in this barn, and then somehow we ended up over there was like old tractors lined up on the side of the field, and we ended up over there. And next thing I know, I was on top of the tractor, and I had on rubber cowgirl rain boots because those were in style. And I actually wasn't even supposed to have them on because they were her older sisters. and she wasn't home, so I got to steal them to wear them for the day. But so the toe of it, like the pointed part, got caught on top of the tractor, and I went to fall from off the top of the tractor and grabbed the live power line that was hanging low from a storm from the past.
When you grab onto that power line, is it just immediate pain? Do you feel anything? Do you just black out?
I don't remember any of it. I remember waking up. I don't remember how it felt to grab the power line. Like, I remember waking up and I didn't feel anything, but I could like hear everything and see everything. And I was like, the farmhand, him and his son were working in the middle of the field, and they ran over and like grabbed me, and he was holding me it took him a little bit for them to convince me to let go of the power line because they couldn't touch me.
Were your arms still like attached, or did they blow off, or what happened?
Mm-mm. They were just like melted. Like, it looked like my arms, it looked like the bones had melted, and like they were sunken in in the middle, and they were like crispy, like they were burnt. And then I had tie-dye wrist from my silly bands.
Oh my gosh. Wait, this is like the silly bands just really paints
all up
this.
All up my forearm.
Okay, so that's just like almost funny, the silly band
it's
aspect.
hilarious.
I mean, because every 10-year-old though, I remember that, like everybody had silly bands. And so, but it's crazy to think about like a crazy tragic accident like that happening with the silly bands on. That really paints the picture though of how young you really were.
Oh, and my outfit was all Justice and my Claire's earrings.
It's kind of iconic. Like, we're kind of like making like humor in like a really dark situation, but like it's kind of iconic. Okay, so when your other friend, she has to see this all happening. Is she screaming?
Mm-hmm. She ran inside and told her mom. I mean, she didn't know what was going on. We were 10 years old. She just ran inside and said that Maddison's dead. Mm-hmm. And her mom was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm not like sure on what details of how that happened for them because I was in a little different situation.
Right.
But they were like, I think she might have thought that I got bit by a snake or something.
The mom or the girl?
But the little girl.
But wasn't she standing right there? She sees you grab the power line.
Well, I don't think she like saw me grab it. She just saw me hurt after.
Okay, so had you fallen off the power line then?
No, I was just on the top of the tractor, like holding it. I don't know. I guess she just it didn't all click with her just because of everything going on.
When her parents came then to approach you, or was it her mother? They couldn't pull you off?
It was the worker, one of the workers. He couldn't touch me because if he would have touched me, it would have electrocuted him too. He had to just convince me to let go of it. But I was like foaming and like out of, like I was not conscious, like, so he was trying to figure out how to do it. And finally I came to and let go. And then he held me because I couldn't touch anything because it blew like a hole in my hip and my back. That's where it exited. But the rain boots are what saved me because they were rubber. And the hole on my hip was so big that you could put a softball in it and like not see it.
Was there blood gushing?
Mm-mm. It was just like smoke. Like it looked like fire.
When the paramedics or whatever finally come, do you remember that?
Yes. I remember them handing me down, like off, like trying to get me all off the top of the tractor. And they put me in the ambulance and they wrapped me in this stuff that looked like tinfoil. I don't know what it was for, but I remember that. And then the woman taking out my earrings. And then they cut up my Justice shirt. I was very upset about that. I literally remember being like, "You can't cut my shirt."
Oh.
And the woman actually saved those earrings and gave them to me because this was April 25th, 2010. My birthday is June 22nd. And my the EMT drivers, they came to my birthday party and she brought me the earrings that she had taken off me that day in the ambulance.
I love that. Do you still have them?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure somewhere. I think they're in like a box upstairs.
You should put those in like a shadow box. You know what I'm talking about? And frame it, like those little shadow boxes.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so cute. Okay, so when you finally woke up, or you're conscious, all this time has passed. You're at the hospital. Everybody's running around. What do you remember about being in the hospital? Did they tell you we're gonna have to take your arms off, or did you not wake up till after that had already happened?
Well, when we left, so I was in the ambulance. And we drove down the road just a little bit to get to the helicopter. And I was airlifted to Memphis. And the last thing I remember is being put into the helicopter. And I was in Le Bonheur for that day at Le Bonheur. They amputated my right arm instantly. And so I don't remember that. And then I was flown to Shriners in Cincinnati. And they tried to keep my left hand as long as possible. But they slowly brought it back and back until it was okay, and the infection was gone. So I was there for 38 days, and I only remember the last week or two. So when I woke up, it's kind of like I had already known that I didn't have arms anymore. So it wasn't like a shock.
How long were you in a coma for?
I wasn't. I just was on a morphine pump.
Okay. Was there ever a moment that you thought that you were going to die, or did you just think, I'm really hurt, but I'm going to be fine?
I don't remember thinking I was going to die. I just remember thinking, what is going on? I thought everyone was lying. It was so, crazy and wild. I thought everyone was lying to me and, making stuff up. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me.
And so that was when you were 10. How old are you now?
22.
How many surgeries from 10 till now have you actually undergone?
48 or something like that, because I've had surgeries throughout the years, cosmetically to make the scar smaller and stuff like that.
Obviously you were really young when this happened, but how do you process going through an injury like that at 10 years old? When you finally get home from the hospital, now you go one day from having 2 hands to another day not having any hands. How does a 10-year-old go through that? Do you feel like you went through depression at 10 years old?
No, I think it's not as bad since I was so young. I mean, my goal, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I was I'm ready to be a kid again. So that, it never crossed my mind to have a poor me moment and be sad. I just got back into my life. And literally the week I got home from the hospital, I was still in pressure garments, which is what you have to wear when you're burnt, when you have burns on your body. My neighbors got a four-wheeler and they tied the trash can top with a rope to the back of the four-wheeler, and I was on it and just riding around.
I love that. I
never had a moment to be sad.
Yeah, you never let anything slow you down. Okay, so one thing I want to know is, I'm guessing, was it physical therapists and stuff like that were teaching you, here's how you're going to do things now with no hands?
There was, in the hospital, there was I had to do therapy every day, occupational therapy, physical therapy. I had to learn to walk again. And there was this one lady who helped me figure out how to write and stuff. And
how do you write?
I have this little band that fits on my arm, and it's actually made for people with arthritis when their fingers curl up and you can't use them anymore. It's a band that goes onto the palm of your hand. And it has a little hole. You can stick forks and anything in it. I write with it, eat, makeup, everything.
So do you just keep it in your purse?
I have hundreds of them everywhere. You can get them for $10 on Amazon.
That's fascinating.
I also have prosthetics in my closet floor.
Okay, so yes, that's interesting. You have prosthetics, but they're on your closet floor, or you're not wearing them. Why aren't you wearing prosthetics?
Because I was so young when it happened. And I didn't get them until sophomore, junior year in high school. So I'd already learned, because insurance said that the hands aren't medically necessary.
What do you mean insurance said hands aren't medically necessary?
They said that I didn't need hands and said that they weren't paying for them. So I didn't get them. I'd already learned how to do everything by the time I did get them.
And so once you got them, you're just like, you know what? I don't even need these.
We just got them to prove a point at that point. I knew I didn't need them. So.
That's unbelievable. Are you still friends with the girl who witnessed your accident?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I saw her the other day.
She thought that you were dead. Did she go through any type of PTSD after that, or any anxiety or just mental health issues just seeing her friend like that? I would feel like I would be so traumatized.
Not that I'm sure she has, but that's a subject that she does not speak about.
That's interesting. So you guys never have spoken about it, really? You don't talk about your accident or that day?
Not into detail. Like, and if people bring it up, like, the conversation gets shut down. We just
By her, not you.
Oh, I'm very open about it. Like, I make jokes about it. I mean, can't go back.
I love that. You know, I'm going to tell you something. I was saying to my team, I was like, you know, if I was in a tragic accident, like if something like this ever happens to me, I would like be the reels queen. I would be making all sorts of like dark jokes. I would be making reels and doing all this stuff because like you have to make light of a situation that's so tragic like this. Do you feel like you kind of do that kind of stuff with your friends?
Oh, it's so bad. No, like I make strangers uncomfortable. Like I'll make like, say we're in a group and there's people that don't know me yet. I'll make a comment and they sit there and they don't know whether to smile or laugh. And then I'm like, it's funny. You can laugh. It's okay.
And you were in a sorority in Ole Miss.
Yes.
What was it like rushing and joining a sorority when they first see you and you come on the scene and you have no hands? What was that moment like, rushing?
Well, since I grew up only an hour from Ole Miss, they all were very aware of me and who I was going. And so they all wanted me in their sorority. They all wanted the handless girl in their sorority. And so every time I'd walk in the room, they'd all just flock over to me. And I was just like, I know.
Here we go.
But it was actually terrifying because all these girls were screaming in your face. And I was just like, oh.
What sorority were you in?
Kappa Gamma.
Okay. And is that I'm assuming you would say that's the best sorority to be in if you're going to Ole Miss?
Over the past few years, it has become, I think it's number one right now.
Because I have never like watched Rush TikTok and all that stuff, and that all became popular this year. And so for the first time, I was watching that with like Bama Rush.
It's cringy.
Bama Rush is cringy, like compared to Ole Miss. You mean?
All of it is.
Do you do all that stuff they do? Like
yes.
Okay. Did you have a favorite? I have to ask. Did you have a favorite of those TikTok Rush girls?
I tried not to watch it. It brought back PTSD from.
Right?
Because, I mean, we would spend hours, like 3 a.m. in the sorority house, jumping, screaming.
Oh, my gosh.
Chance.
Okay, so when you finally went back to school when you were a kid after your accident, what did you learn about how other children process trauma? So, like, they're like, Maddie, you came back and now you have no hands. I mean, were they just really curious, asking a lot of questions? How did they react to you?
Well, so my school was very, very small. My graduating class was 11. So when I went back to school, I think there was 12 of us, and we'd all grown up together. We were all best friends, and they had already been, like, some of them flew up to the hospital to see me. So most of them had already understood, and everyone's parents, told them, you know. Some of them were very attentive. Like one of my best friends, his name is Maddox. He was my neighbor at the time too. He was always like, Maddie, you need help? Like always helping me. And then sometimes people would be like scared. Like they'd want to help me.
Yeah.
But they were like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
You know, I did an episode of about a month ago or so with Medley, who is a burn survivor. And I asked her that when you're out in public and people are staring or clearly want to ask questions, would you rather that they treated you like normal, like you absolutely have hands, or would you rather they just ask you?
If I would rather just ask. I mean, if you're going to stare, ask. But if not, I mean, it's whatever. It doesn't bother me as much anymore as it used to because they're just curious.
When you were little, was there ever a period where you were bullied with your disability or no?
No, I got very lucky going to a small private Christian school. I only have one incident one time with one boy, and my guy friends handled that very quick, and it never happened again.
I love that. That's the perks of going to a Southern school, you know?
Yes.
What is something that able-bodied people can do that you do get jealous of?
Hair.
Like being able to do their own hair?
Yes. It's so frustrating. Like explaining, because the only thing physically that I cannot do, like altogether of any category, is putting my hair in a ponytail. It's the only thing I cannot do. And it's so frustrating trying to explain to someone how I want my hair done because I know, and I know how to do it, but I can't do it, and then they're not doing it right. Oh, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
I got these extensions and I was like, if I'm going to invest in this hair, it's so much hair to like blow dry and style. I was like, I'm going to dry bar and I'm just going to get a blowout once a week. So I don't even do my hair either because I hate it.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah, but I can brush it. I just figured out, well, I learned how to brush it, I think, sophomore year in high school, and it was not very effective, but like it kind of got the job done. I would like flip my hair over and brush it on the side of the bed, but now I can use my cuff.
Oh, the little tool?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what phantom pain is and if you ever experience it?
It is awful. I had it only from April to August I had it, and it feels like your hand, like it felt like I could feel my hand inside of my arm right here trying to grow out of it. And on this side.
And it hurts, and that's what people experience when they have had like amputations.
Miserable. It's awful. And it usually does not stop, but when I broke my femur, my body started focusing on that pain, and so the phantom pain stopped.
I think a lot of people, at least young girls and stuff, I know for me, when I think of people that have had amputations or missing limbs or things like that, the two people that come to mind for me are Bethany Hamilton and Lauren Scruggs. And you actually have gotten to know and become friends with both of them, right?
Yeah, I actually talk to Lauren almost every day.
Talk about that. That's so cool.
They are they are the nicest people. They don't just, like, people are always assume like, oh, they're like famous. They're not. Like, they are so genuine. And it's really interesting watching, like, Bethany's so like confident and comfortable being an amputee, and we go into the retreat. Lauren was not comfortable. Like, she was always with her prosthetic on, never was seen without it. And over the years, like, she's getting better about it. She'll text me and be like, I didn't wear my prosthetic, or show it. I'm like, they're awesome.
Bethany Hamilton has a retreat for fellow amputees. And are they all girls, or is it girls and guys?
All girls.
And how long have you been going to this?
I started going when I was 14.
And where does it take place?
San Diego. Well, Del Mar. It's right outside of San Diego. And then one year it was in Hawaii. And they had it this year too in Hawaii, but I haven't gone the past 2 years.
How many people go?
It started out, I think there was like 8 of us. And I think the last time I went, maybe 16 or 17 of us.
And so it's a tight-knit group. You guys become really close friends.
And there's new girls that come throughout the years, but there's a few of us that have been to pretty much all of them, and like we're friends now, and they live all across the U.S. So. And
what kinds of injuries do these girls have?
Anything you could think of. A lot of ATV accidents, a botched ACL surgery.
Ooh.
Yeah. One of their family dogs ripped her arm off. And then one girl, her mom dropped a cigarette in her crib when she was an infant and caught her on fire. And so she's an amputee now.
Oh, my gosh. What are the differences between hanging out with those girls, those amputee friends of yours versus friends who have their limbs?
It's not much different. I actually am more comfortable being with my friends that have hands, because when you're around other girls that don't have hands, you're like seeing what they're doing. You don't know if you're doing it right. Like, so you're like, oh my gosh, wait, I should be doing it like that. And then you just get insecure about all the stuff you do, and you think you're doing it wrong. But people with hands, I feel normal, I guess you should say.
I always think about how the left really makes victimhood a virtue. And you grew up in the South, you have very conservative parents, and we see this ideology being pushed on campuses all across the country that victimhood is cool, everyone wants to be a victim of something. So how does it make you feel when you see peers of yours complain about how hard life is here in America while you have spent most of your life really overcoming the impossible?
Well, I mean, it's annoying when I hear people poor me and all this kind of stuff. But it's hard to compare because I don't have that mindset. Like, I don't ever think to myself, oh, I've had it so bad or I've had it so rough. I've just lived life.
But don't you think that's what's frustrating about people that have that mindset is that I feel like that is the true American mindset is to be an overcomer and to not let those things cripple you for, like,
what's the point? Then it happened for nothing and you just wasted your life.
Exactly. And that's what I love about your story. And so how have values from your family helped kind of instill that strength and resilience in you when things really did get tough?
I've just always known that God would not have done this to me if there was not a reason. He had a purpose for it. And it'd be a waste to not just keep living life to the fullest. So that's always been what I've held on to. Happened for a reason.
I do want to talk about dating with you a little bit, just because obviously a lot of us are using apps and stuff. And I want to know, one, if you're using apps like Hinge, Bumble, if you do you address in the bio and little caption like, yes, obviously in my pictures I have no arms? Or, when do you discuss this with guys, like talk about the injury? Obviously, if you just graduated from college, so guys on campus see you, they know you don't have hands.
They run.
Are they scared to date you? Has dating been hard for you?
It's not, which from people that have told me, like guy friends and stuff, they say that it's intimidating. It's not that they are scared, which, I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there that are. Like, it's natural, I guess. But most of the time, guys are just, like, intimidated, and they don't know what to do. Dating hasn't been hard because of an amputee. Dating's just hard because dating's hard. I mean,
wait, that is a freaking quote. That should be a shirt. You should make a sweatshirt or something and come out with merch that says that.
I've had a few good quotes that I've just thrown out over the years, and I'm like, oh, look at me.
That is pretty freaking good. Okay, so are you on the apps then?
I don't have them, but sometimes we'll get them for fun, just to mess around with people. And I will make sure to, like, put pictures that show I don't have hands. And sometimes I think they'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice you don't have arms because you're so beautiful. I'm like, it's cringy.
You're like, come up with a better line.
I would rather you just not address it. We know. We can tell from the pictures. We don't have to talk about it.
When you have you been in some serious relationships? So
yes.
In those serious relationships, is it hard for you to be like, I just wish that I could hold hands with somebody, just normal things like that?
That was in my first relationship. I dated a guy for 4.5 years in, like, high school and freshman year of college. And it ran through my mind a lot, but he always used to, like, hold my nub. And so it made me feel better.
That's so cute. Do you have total feeling in the nub of your arm?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
I did cry the first time he did that, though. Every time, I've only had 2 guys do that, both my ex-boyfriends. And I've cried both times the first time they did it.
Why did you cry?
I don't know, because it's like, it's a very insecure part. Not insecure, but like, this is my nub. Like, don't touch it. I don't want people touching my nub. And then being okay with, like, holding my arm. It was very comforting, I guess you'd say.
It was like true love that they were willing to do that.
I guess you'd say that.
One of your most insecure parts, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you cry and stuff, how do you wipe tears? Just with the nub?
With my nubby.
That's so cute. Okay.
I have a breakdown every day.
Don't we all?
I love crying.
How often do you think about climbing onto that tractor that day?
Honestly, not very often. People think I'm, like, making it up sometimes. I don't ever think about my accident. I forget I don't have hands. It's just my normal life. Unless someone asks me about it, it just never comes up.
Have you thought about going and speaking at elementary schools and doing more public speaking?
I spoke at an elementary school one time. It's not a good idea.
Why? What happened?
I mean, they're kids. Kindergartners don't understand what I am. They think I'm like an alien or something. Some of them are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Look. And some of them are like, oh, like go cry in the corner. So I just try not to talk to children.
What I really like about you is that you're such a beautiful girl. You have an amazing bright spirit. You have a great sense of humor, and you just graduated college. So I know that you're kind of figuring things out, what you want to do. Do you have any idea at all?
I'm going to get my interior design license.
Ooh.
And that's what I'll be doing.
Okay,
Remodeling
good.
houses.
Well, I'll have to hire you then, because I was just thinking
do.
that I needed to redo my entire apartment, and I have no idea where to start. So that's like short picture, like short-term picture, Madysen interior designer. But Madysen Acey, old and gray, this is a long time from now. What do you hope that she is like, and what do you hope she has accomplished?
I hope when I'm old and gray, I hope I have kids and grandkids, and that I have had a successful business, and maybe do some public speaking throughout the years. Not sure yet.
Have Lauren or Bethany asked you to do some public speaking events and things like that?
I did one. It was a small event, but I did a public speaking event in Hawaii when I was at the Bethany Treat one time. And that's the only time I've ever done public speaking.
For any cute conservatives who are not able-bodied, what is your advice to them? What would you say to them? Just the different insecurities they go through, the struggles they go through, self-esteem issues they may go through, comparisons.
I think I would say, which this quote, I guess, could go for any, I put it on any angle possible. Life is not about what you've lost, it's about what you have. Don't dwell on what you've lost or other people's, other people. Don't focus on them. Focus on yourself and find anything to make you happy and just focus on that. I always say just focus on the good. And you can find good in any situation and just hold on to that, and you'll be all right.
Where can people follow you on Instagram, Madysen?
At Mady_Acey.
And how do you spell it?
MADY_ACEY.
Thank you for coming on the Spillover.
Thank you.
If Madysen isn't the sweetest cinnamon roll that you've ever seen or heard, you got to see her, though. You can watch Politics YouTube. Okay, subscribe on there to see this episode of The Spillover. You've got to see this girl. When I first heard her story, I just knew that she is someone who so many people need to hear from, because she was dealt a card in life so specific, but also incredibly universal. Like, what do you do when something happens that you totally don't deserve, but you're dealt the card anyway? You keep going. And I find it so refreshing to talk with people who have actually gone through something hard and actively work to defy the odds and overcome the situation, especially because, like I said, we live in a society where people glorify suffering. Technically, Madysen is a victim of a horrible accident, but her life says otherwise. She isn't defined by what she can't do. Instead, her life flourishes because of what she can do. And I think we all can be a little bit more like that under way less drastic circumstances. Just my food for thought. Anywho, if you haven't clicked subscribe, what are you still doing? Click those subscriptions. Tell my boss that you love my podcast. And if you want to be a true queen, leave me more love with a 5-star review. I read every single one. I check them every day. It's kind of sad. It's like an addiction. Now, if you've been here a minute, then you know the drill. We're back next Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But as always, like I said, watch the episodes on Politics' YouTube and TPUSA Live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. That's all I got for you this week. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
Big dog status, I'm a big dog, bet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette.